Hello, and welcome to Retroscoping, a podcast tracing the evolution of feature animation. We're journeying through the films of the studio that started it all, Walt Disney Studios. This week, we're delving into lucky number 13, Alice in Wonderland. But first, a bit about us. I'm your host, Nathan.
And I'm Alexa.
And Alexa, what makes us qualified to do this podcast?
Well, I am a huge Alice in Wonderland nerd, so I am your resident expert in Alice in Wonderland.
She is my resident expert. She lives here and is an expert.
So I've been pretty obsessed with Alice since I was indeed Alice's age or younger. You know, I had one of those really cute Alice outfits, but it drove me nuts that the white apron that was on that dress had a picture of the White Rabbit on it, so it was not Alice's exact dress. That infuriated me when I was like 5. So I couldn't just be Alice. And I've basically been obsessed with this story ever since. I own at least 5 copies of Alice in Wonderland with various illustrators and whatnot. It is the tome by which I live my life. There are many life lessons to be learned in Alice in Wonderland.
As I am sure we will discover through the course of this podcast.
I will convert you.
This is the part where I make a startling confession. I don't really get Alice in Wonderland. I find it kind of a stressful movie to watch. I kind of resent its lack of plot or any sort of forward momentum or progression.
You just haven't learned to embrace the chaos.
Yeah, I have a lot of trouble embracing chaos. That's not a gift that I have in life. For me, it's like watching somebody else's stress dream.
I mean, most of it's not that stressful. The first half, she's just looking for the White Rabbit.
Right.
It's only stressful after she's decided that she's done looking for him and is frustrated. Oh, but like, this is what I realized is, like, I would be able to roll with all the chaos. So I would be a better, Alice than Alice herself. Like, I would be able to rock Wonderland so hard.
Okay, I see. So you just deep down want to replace Alice.
Yes, that is.
Do a better job.
Listen, Alice, 5 letters, starts with an A. Alexa, 5 letters, starts with an A. We are same. Also, probably the reason my favorite color is blue. Belle contributes to that as well, but... Well, let's get started.
All right. So Alice in Wonderland, as we mentioned, is the 13th film from Walt Disney Animation Studios. Production was started in 1946, and the budget was about $3 million.
Yes. Unfortunately, though, that when the film was released, it only grossed $2.4 million in its domestic rentals, so the studio ended up having to write off that loss, which is a decently significant loss.
But like all Disney financial failures, they just kept re-releasing it and milking money out of it until it was profitable.
Yeah, so in 1974, they re-released it and grossed $3.5 million. So there! They made their money back because it's a great, great film. This movie, by the way, Alice in Wonderland, has more songs than any other Disney movie.
Huh. I would not have guessed that. It doesn't feel like a musical in the way that many others are.
Where were you when we were watching this film? They're singing all the time.
Maybe I was asleep? So there's the Flowers song, there's the Merry on Birthday, it barely qualifies as a song, but Cheshire Cat mumbling about the Tillywood and the Jabberwock.
He does not say anything about the Jabberwock.
But it's implied. It's there. It's waiting. We all know it's coming if he would just finish the dang song.
But okay, so there's Alice's song in the opening about if I had a world of my own, everything would be nonsense. There is the Caucus Race. Tweedledee and Tweedledum come out to sing The Walrus and the Carpenter, and as she's leaving, they sing a snatch of You Are Old Father William. I don't think there is music again until The Flowers, All in the Golden Afternoon. The Caterpillar has a song, A-E-I-O-U. I mean, look, these are great songs with magical lyrics. Some of them are just poems that were already written, and some of them are just singing letters. It's fine. The Cheshire Cat and his 'Twas Brillig was the Slithy Toves Jabberwocky song. We have the Mad Tea Party. They are singing when she arrives. Then they sing A Very Merry on Birthday. And then we go from there to her getting really mad and going to the Tulgey Wood where she sings about how she gives herself very good advice, but I very seldom follow it. We're already at 10.
And then there's Painting the Roses Red.
Thank you. Anyway, very musical.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a lot of songs.
It is an extremely musical movie. Mm-hmm. How dare you? I know all of it. I have this CD. It's in my car. I know the words.
That you do.
I'm not going to sing them all for you now. But this movie was in development for 10 years. And then it spent 5 years in actual production. It was actually kind of in a funny race with Cinderella. They were being produced at the same time, which is why when you look at Mary Blair's work on these, they do look very similar in terms of, you know, her style in the era. But Cinderella ended up pulling ahead first and therefore got to come out in 1950, and Alice in Wonderland came out in 1951. But one thing I just wanted to say, like, while comparing Alice in Wonderland to Cinderella, what I actually really loved while watching this film, and watching it right after we watched Cinderella, is that you can really see the difference in the character movement between who Cinderella just is as a character as she moves through space and the way that she composes herself and holds her body, versus Alice, who has very different mannerisms and her center of weight is different than Cinderella's, and like just really paying attention to that is so beautiful. Like, this is real craftsmanship. When they talk about that illusion of life, like, this is what they're talking about. It's those very small things that add up to this character feeling very distinct, but also like a real person.
Yeah. Even though, you know, ostensibly they are both classically beautiful blonde women, they are incredibly distinct characters.
Well, but like that's the thing is like, you know, we'll notice later on with like when Disney does a bear character, they just all look like Baloo. But in terms of having two young female characters who are blonde, you would think that they'd be in more danger of coming off as carbon copies of each other, especially in the way that Katrina just felt like a really wonky, rough draft for Cinderella. The fact that Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland feel so different from each other is just really striking, and I applaud them.
Yeah, it's a really clear example of the dedication to craft and character creation of the Disney animators in this time period. And I would assume also probably an interesting example of the difference between reference models.
So one of the things that they were doing is that they were actually filming an entire live action version of the movie before they sat down and animated it. So they did in fact have Kathryn Beaumont, who's the voice of Alice in Wonderland, running around a set with the other actors and characters in the film, wearing the blue dress, performing all of the mannerisms and lines and as she would normally do it, and then the animators would take that footage and draw from it, which I think is why we get these really wonderful, nuanced performances from the animated characters. And also, if you aren't a trained voice actor, I think that would help you like really feel everything you need to feel in the moment. I feel like when you watch some of the animated feature films where they have just picked an A-list star who is not a voice actor, like you can really, if you listen or pay attention to it, or even if you don't have a trained ear, just listen for those really dead voices that animators then have to really over-animate to compensate for them. But I think that this method of shooting a live-action version where the actors get to really immerse themselves in the role is going to help them be much more expressive in their voice along with the rest of their body. And I wish we had more money to do this more often. I think that would be great. There are plenty of fantastic voice actors, by the way, who do not need this sort of thing at all, and I love them too. They're amazing. I love them so much. But I digress. So, of course, Alice in Wonderland is based on both of the books, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Alice in Wonderland was first published in 1865, and it's the one with the famous illustrations by John Tenniel. There was, at one point in the development, a version where they were doing character designs very, very close to John Tenniel's, but it ended up being like too close, and those are very detailed, and there's no way that those are going to animate very well.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a very, very difficult prospect to animate. But they're so iconic that you couldn't just ignore them either. I mean, I think this film does an excellent job of taking into account that we all have a certain vision of these characters because of those illustrations, but providing their own spin on it. Something that feels appropriately Disney and appropriately weird.
Lewis Carroll's actual name was Reverend Charles Ludwig Dodgson. I can see why he changed it. He taught maths at Oxford and was a deacon of the Anglican Church, in case you were wondering.
I was wondering. And see, in England, you teach a subject we don't have here in the US called maths.
Because they are many.
Mathematics are legion.
They are, and that is why I fear them. Anyway, so Dodgson, he told a real-life story to Alice Liddell and her sisters Lorena and Edith during a picnic on July of 1862, and cute little Alice asked him to write it down. So that handwritten version was called Alice's Adventures Underground. Eventually one of his friends read it and was like, "You should publish this, man!"
Excuse me, Reverend Charles Ludwig Dodgson. You should publish this, man!
He definitely expanded upon it from that point, and it was published and has been basically a huge success and beloved ever since. One of the things that I wanted to note, because they are literally songs in this movie, is that the poems How Doth the Little Crocodile and You Are Old Father Williams are actually parodies of didactic poems that children would have known in his era, and so that is why they were so delightful. But we don't know these poems anymore, so we don't know why they're so funny or what they're referencing.
You can definitely get the sense from the beginning of this movie that it is aware that English education at the time was not the most riveting subject.
Which I think is what I really love about Alice in Wonderland as a whole, is that I really do think it is full of interesting lessons and morals, and it's turning the normal lessons we have on their head and asking us to examine them, but it also has a lot of good advice layered in there as well. It is a very delicious cake of chaos.
Delicious cake of chaos. Yeah, I saw them open for U2 at the Yankee Stadium in 1983.
We start off by following the White Rabbit down the rabbit hole in case he's headed off to somewhere important, like a party or something.
A party sounds really great right now. I'd follow a white rabbit to a party.
Aww. I mean, we're having a tea party. I have tea. You can have some if you like. Mm-hmm. Every day is a tea party for me.
Every day is tea for you. You gotta play some music to make it a tea party.
I don't think those are the rules.
Those are the rules that I have just made up.
I'm just saying I party every day. Because I have a tea party. The end.
Yes. You're gonna party like it's 1799.
1865.
1865?
Was that when this book came out?
Oh, yeah.
Hang on. I did it! I remembered. All right, so follow us down the rabbit hole after the White Rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Who is late? Another thing I'm sure you identified with in this film.
A wizard is never late, nor is he early. She arrives precisely when she means to.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get those wizard abilities refined so we can get some magic around this house, and then you can arrive whenever you intend to.
I make magic every day. It's called tea. The end. The sequence where she is falling down the rabbit hole
is very cool.
Is the most brilliant, beautiful sequence.
I'm really surprised that is not a Disneyland ride just by itself. Is a slow descent as everything is floating up past you.
I would love to ride that ride so much, but I want it to be like enclosed so that you can just rotate and look at all the weird objects around you.
Mm-hmm. Could turn you upside down from time to time.
Oh, I want this so badly. It sounds delightful.
We gotta find an Imagineer.
I know. Well, they managed to fit so many interesting little details into that descent, like the mirror that is passing her in the opposite way. That breaks my brain. And the map of the people on the other side of the world. And she wonders, perhaps she'll fall right through the center of the earth and come out the other side where people walk upside down. So we get down the rabbit hole and we chase the rabbit through so many cool doors.
Till at last we reach the talking doorknob.
He's a delight. I enjoy him very much. He gives great advice, like, simply impassable. And Alice says, you mean impossible? He says, no, impassable. Nothing's impossible.
And how do you apply that to your everyday life?
Well, nothing's impossible.
But some things are impassable.
Yes, but the point is that then you can change them. So try the bottle on the table. And he is able to swallow her into the next scene, which is a cool transition, by the way.
It is a very cool transition.
Like, not all of the scene transitions are perfect, but this is one of the best ones.
Because we go right through the mouth of the doorknob into an open sea.
Which is, like, black with white highlights, basically, to delineate the different waves. It's very striking visually. And then way off in the distance, she can kind of see the dodo and his other bird friends. If you do watch this film, I love the glassy-eyed stare of the crow that he's sitting on.
There's a man who's accepted his lot in life.
It's just really funny to me. But she does eventually wash up on shore right into the Jolly Caucus Race, which is not a thing I understood as a child. I get part of what's funny, because it's just inherently funny that they keep running in a circle trying to get dry and they can't. Not until I got older did I really understand, like, the making fun of a caucus race.
What is a caucus race?
Isn't that what Democrats do every 4 years?
Oh, well, yeah, there are caucuses in the primary process, which is a specific kind of political arrangement where you all get together in a room and try and convince one another to agree unanimously or semi-unanimously on a candidate.
Yes, so the joke in the book originally is that a whole bunch of animals fall into the puddle of tears she had created. And so then they all need to dry themselves off. So the dodo proposes that the driest thing in the entire world is a caucus, and so they must have a caucus race. And so
I'm sure that joke went over very well with young Alice Liddell.
Well, that's where this whole scene comes from, is there is nothing drier than a caucus.
All right. I get that joke now that it has been explained to me. It's a funny joke.
It is a hilarious joke. Ah.
So we go from the Caucus Race to Tweedledee and Tweedledum, who are actually a fairly unique sort of animation. They look unlike a lot of other Disney material. There's something very kind of angular and slapstick about them, even though they're very round.
Like a visual Humpty Dumpty-ness to them. Which Humpty Dumpty is another character in Through the Looking Glass.
They're pretty egg-like in the original.
That's true.
That is an excellent example of how Disney takes this design, absolutely pays tribute to it, but makes a more animation-friendly, exaggerated cartoon version.
Absolutely. I do feel about Tweedledee and Tweedledum, though, watching this in the century we are in, that they are kind of like terrible bros who like don't know when no means no.
Well, they just seemed like, sort of people in your life that really just need someone to talk to. But you got to be careful, because if you let them start telling you their stories, it's never going to stop.
Which is fine, because they don't notice when you leave. They go ahead and start telling the story of the walrus and the carpenter, or the story of the curious oysters.
Really, it's a question about any story. What is it really about? Is it about the victims, or is it about the villains?
Well, as a kid, I had not eaten any oysters, and so I feel like the poem used to make a whole lot more sense when you felt bad for the cute little oysters. But as an adult who has enjoyed many an oyster, I am now very troubled by this poem.
Does it implicate you in the fate of these cute, curious oysters? You are an oyster eater.
I am an oyster eater, and I will not apologize for that. I just don't know if that makes me a walrus or a carpenter.
Well, you have eaten oysters, and the carpenter doesn't get to eat oysters, so I'll call you a walrus.
But he has theoretically eaten oysters before, or he would not be so excited about them. And I, too, have eaten oysters before, and currently don't have any.
Maybe you are the carpenter. That's your next BuzzFeed quiz. Are you the walrus or the carpenter?
I am the walrus. I am the walrus. One thing about this, you'll notice when the mother oyster looks at her calendar on the wall and it says March, there's this big R in the middle that flashes red. I didn't know why it did that for the longest time, but in researching, I found out that there's apparently this really old adage about only eating oysters in the months that have an R in them. I didn't know this. No one told me. Is this a thing?
I certainly had never heard it, and until you mentioned it to me the other day, I'd never really thought about the fact that the summer months are the only months that don't have R's in them.
Good months for pirating. Yeah, so apparently this comes from way back in 1599. You heard that correctly, folks. 1599. An English cookbook called Diet's Dry Dinner told other medievals of the day, say no to raw oysters in the summer, and there's some merit to that. Because apparently in the summer months is when there are red tides or blooms of algae that will grow on the coast that spread toxins that can be absorbed by the shellfish as they are eating. This definitely happens when there's warmer water temperatures in the summer. So if you're eating local seafood, oysters, it's probably better not to eat them in the summer, but a lot of restaurants and commercially feeding of humans,
commercially managed fisheries.
Yeah, like they're all farming their own oysters. So you're probably fine eating oysters whenever you want because this is the modern era. But if you were a medieval person... All right, so after Alice escapes these two bros who will not leave her alone, she wanders up to a cute little cottage and is berated by the White Rabbit, who tells her to go inside and get his gloves, which she does poorly because Alice can't help snacking. So she gets really super big and all of her limbs stick out of the cottage, which there's just something really appealing about that design that I have to personally applaud. The thatched roof and how the house kind of looks like its own little monster with her limbs sticking out.
The thatched straw roof does do a very good job of making it feel like that is her hair.
Exactly. Well, it evokes that same sort of thing. Well, thankfully the dodo is coming by, and thankfully also then Bill the lizard comes by.
Oh, Bill.
Oh, Bill. Poor Bill. Bill does not make it down the chimney. Unfortunately.
Yeah, what happens to Bill?
The world may never know. He kind of shoots off like Team Rocket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a sequel to be made to Alice in Wonderland where Bill returns, grizzled and covered in ash from his long journey across Wonderland, encountering many trials and tribulations. And he's become a hero in a distant land.
Oh, that would be very sweet. Perhaps he becomes a knight of the chessboard.
I believe it. So eventually she shrinks back down
and goes running off into a garden to fulfill her fantasy of talking to the flowers.
Your dreams always disappoint you.
They give her a fantastic musical number first before disappointing her.
That's true.
And insulting her.
Mm-hmm. Your dreams will give you a fantastic musical number before disappointing you.
Which also, this musical number is the only one that you can remember. So it is a pretty good musical number.
You can learn a lot of things from the flowers, including the song. You can learn a lot of things from the flowers.
And they could also learn a few things about manners, and that is how we learn that no one is perfect. I mean, this particular song is just full of so many delightful little puns. And even before the song, we have the puns of the bread and butterflies and the rocking horsefly, which are taken from Carol's original book for sure. Mm-hmm. But they are just such a delight. And I think this is also why I love puns so much, because of Alice in Wonderland and all of these little twists on words you think you know.
I do love the flower designs. They are especially, this is something that Disney's done a lot of through Fantasia and various bits in the compilations, but their flowers are 100% flower and 100% people at the same time. And they do a really good job of finding the character in any given flower.
I wholeheartedly agree. In fact, I feel like I can now look at flowers in a garden or in a nursery or outside the grocery store, and you can kind of see their faces now.
Thanks to Alice.
But the most beautiful flower of all is that white rose who has her own, like, little section off to the side where it's just covered in, like, spiderwebs and dewdrops. And, like, she's just an angel of a rose.
Yeah, she has her own lighting department.
Seriously, though. I guess there's an interesting thought of, wishing you could talk to the flowers, and the problem being they just don't have much to say.
I feel like that's a recurring joke about Aquaman, right? It's like, he can talk to fish, but have you ever tried talking to a fish?
No, I haven't.
Not the most interesting conversationalists, fish.
The dandelions, though, are such a great design. They're just the fun little puffballs, and they're really great colors. Oh, but there's also that really great flower towards the end of the All in the Golden Afternoon song where, like, when it was on screen, I don't know what kind of flower it is, but it starts playing on some other vegetation, like drums, and they all light up, and it very much evokes the Muppets Animal, except this is many years before Animal will be invented.
Yes, I think while we were watching that section of the film, I actually yelled, Animal!
Yes, that's precisely what it evokes.
So basically, you love all the flowers, except for the fact that they're mean.
I love all of the flowers, and if I were my right size, I could pick every one of you.
Put them in a bouquet on the table, where they would comment about the decoration of your kitchen and how much cleaning it needs.
Yes, I think that is probably why I do not keep a lot of flowers in my home. They're so judgy. Good golly. So Alice gets washed out of that scene and over to the caterpillar, who is singing his delightful, intricate song, A-E-I-O-U.
Yes, he is. And it takes him a long time to sing that song and anything else he says.
I'm sorry, do you not enjoy the learned, postulating thinker character?
I love a good learned postulating thinker character, but I'm not really that into the existentialists. If your main question is, who are you? I'm not into it.
And yet he's the sort of person who probably wants to take apart poetry to the point where he has improved it. I feel like that should speak to you a little bit. Not that you go around improving poetry, but,
See, I'm more interested in the feeling that poetry evokes and not so much in the exact diction involved.
But I do like, as he asks the question, who are you? Alice gives a very evocative answer of, I hardly know, sir. I've changed so many times since this morning, you see. And haven't we all felt like that in one time or another?
I feel you, Alice. I feel you.
Especially during this very tumultuous time we've been going through in these past months.
Feels like our perspective on the world and our plans for the future and our hopes all change over the course of a day.
Many times in one day sometimes. I really do love watching the smoke pictures, though, of How Doth the Little Crocodile, and it's also very short. It is like a 140-character tweet.
All right, somebody's got to make the Alice in Wonderland caterpillar Twitter account.
100%. Of course, first the caterpillar makes Alice super mad, so she stomps off. But then he calls her back. And because she just has to know, she does come back for a further interaction with the caterpillar, where she then makes him so mad that he disappears entirely. And she's afraid that she has, killed him? I don't know. He left his skin behind, which is very troubling, and his shoes and gloves. But it just turns out that butterflies are jerks, which is another helpful lesson we can learn from this film. Butterflies are jerks.
Right. Now I understand why this resonated with you so much. It is one of the only films that shares your conviction that butterflies are awful.
They are disgusting and terrible.
It would be kind of terrifying to think for a moment that your anger is able to cause people to evaporate from their own body.
I'm sure that's someone's superpower. Ugh. Not today. Oh, I forgot to say one of my favorite parts in this entire film. During the singing of Golden Afternoon, Alice is pulled over to sing with the pansies. And like during her solo, she sings off key and gets a little embarrassed about it. And I absolutely love this moment. It's incredibly endearing. And I think, especially as a kid watching this, it made Alice feel much more real and like a character who was more of a friend, because she actually gets a moment to show that she doesn't have that perfect sheen on her.
Yeah.
Like a Disney princess would never be allowed to sing off key.
Yes, they will auto-tune you until you're on key.
Yeah. My brain doesn't want to. Nope. This moment is really sweet and I think really grounds the character and the performance.
I do think, yeah, Alice as a character is a lot more accessible to children. She's where children are at. She's constantly curious but confused.
Yeah.
Doesn't react to things perfectly, has all kinds of emotions, but muddles through somehow.
Yeah, she muddles along her way, getting lost in some woods, and meets the Cheshire Cat, who also has some very sage advice for us.
And does he?
He does!
Thanks, Winnie the Pooh.
I know, isn't it great that he's voiced by Sterling Holloway? So when you watch this film, definitely envision Winnie the Pooh antagonizing Alice. But, you know, one of the things Alice stops to ask is which way to go. And the Cheshire Cat says, well, that depends on where you want to get to. And she replies, oh, it really doesn't matter. And he cuts her off to say, then it really doesn't matter which way you go.
So either you should take from that you should really have a goal in mind so you can choose the right path, or just have no expectations and whichever way you go will be the right way to go.
It works on both occasions. I personally took away from this in my life that you should always have a goal that you are working towards. Otherwise, you will just kind of wander aimlessly your whole life. And not that that's bad, but I think at some point we often get a little bored or restless realizing that we're not where we want to be, but we don't know where we want to be is. So even if it's a destination you end up changing, like the destination I've been going towards has changed over the course of my life, but knowing that I have one in mind helps me choose the paths to get there.
It is good advice.
But she very seldom follows it.
One of the things, I do love the iconic nature of the Cheshire Cat's design. In fact, it's so iconic in my mind that whenever I see a particular crescent moon with just that exact right width, I can't help but think of it as a Cheshire grin.
It is a Cheshire moon. I agree wholeheartedly.
And then, of course, there's the Mad Tea Party.
It is probably my favorite sequence in the entire movie, to be sure. I am so enthralled with the Mad Tea Party and all of their many teapots and all of their, like, impossible ways of drinking tea, from cutting a cup in half to pouring tea through your sleeve and out the other, or in your collar out into your sleeve, and cracking a teapot that has no spout open to like a coconut.
The work of designing the business for the Mad Tea Party, I'm sure, was a delight.
It is
just
brilliant.
Spitballing all kinds of wrong ways to pour tea.
I am convinced that whoever, storyboarded all of these gags, these are just the world's smartest humans that have ever existed.
True fact. Einstein, he was a chump. A real genius of the 20th century. Storyboarded the Mad Tea Party.
Exactly. I also really like the three spouts coming out of one really tall teapot. I really want to get a teapot that has that. I don't need it to function. I just like the idea of it existing.
I don't know. Maybe we can make one that actually, fills 3 teacups at once.
I feel like it's the super soaker of teapots.
You can fill a teacup from half a room away. Tea me!
Squirt, squirt. Probably too dangerous to allow children to play with steaming hot water, though.
Yeah, that'd be bad. Not for children. And this is not the only Mad Hatter in the world. Hatters had a bit of a reputation for being mad, because apparently Hatters used mercury nitrate when turning animal fur into felt material for their hats. And a lot of exposure to mercurium nitrate tends to cause some health issues. Tremors, speech problems, emotional instability, hallucinations, regular on birthday parties.
Yes, mad as a hatter was actually a phrase used in Dodgson's time period, so it is part of what informs the character of the Mad Hatter, played by Ed Wynn, and also very much modeled after how that actor actually looks in real life.
It's a good design.
And Ed Wynn just looks so friendly.
Yeah, he should be my grandfather.
Well, maybe not your grandfather, but I almost did him for a Guess Who, but I didn't, so I'm going to just go ahead and tell you that he also plays Mary Poppins' uncle in Mary Poppins, obviously. But he is the uncle they go to see who's stuck up the ceiling because he loves to laugh and he can't get down. He is just a delightful character, full of joy and mirth.
Disney loves to bring him in for unusual visits where physics don't work as they should.
Those are the only 2 instances I'm aware of him working for Disney particularly. Feel free to tell me about more, but those are just the 2 that I am personally aware of. But yeah, I mean, he plays it very, very well. He's very animated, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this is a delightful and also frustrating sequence in that, like, you can understand the tension building in Alice as people continue to not listen to her, because it is frustrating when people don't listen to you.
And also when they won't actually let you drink tea.
That is the most frustrating part. It makes me very sad.
I really felt for her. It's really tense.
It's unsatisfying because she never gets to drink any tea.
Right?
But we are also given a delightful tidbit to take with us into our lives. Alice complains that, well, I can't have any more tea because I haven't had any tea yet. And the Mad Hatter sagely replies, "Nonsense, you can always have more than nothing."
Can't argue with that logic.
Lo and behold, of course, the white rabbit that Alice has been searching for shows up at the tea party, running late. What he didn't realize is that his watch is running 2 days slow, which is a hilarious joke.
I don't know. It doesn't have to be a joke. It could be entirely literal. Some of those old stopwatches have like month, day, year calendars on them as well.
I suppose, but it's much less funny that way. And there's something very viscerally, like, appealing to me about that whole sequence of the Mad Hatter fixing, with air quotes, fixing the watch and, like, trying to look at it through a salt shaker that is dribbling salt into the watch and prying up the different wheels that are in it, because clearly those are the problem.
I've told you how this movie's kind of stressful for me. That sequence was just...
slathering it with butter.
Oh, yeah, no, as someone who builds computers, it just... Oh, it hurt. It hurt to watch.
Adding the jam and then cutting the jellified jam from around it.
That was good guy.
It's great. It's pretty great. Also, the whole line about mustard, the March Hare tries to hand him mustard, and he's about to add it, and all of a sudden he stops and goes, "Mustard? Don't let's be silly." And that was just an ad-lib that Ed Wynn did during the live-action taping. Yeah. And Disney liked it so much, he's like, "We have to keep this."
You don't think about ad-lib in animation very much.
I mean, once you get to Robin Williams, heck yes.
Well, yes.
I think that's more of a modern era thing that we think of, especially when you're in a recording booth and they will just take endless takes, and if we like them, we'll board it. Mm-hmm. But very different thing in this particular era. Yeah. To just be ad-libbing.
But it's good ad-lib. Mm-hmm. And his delivery on it is spot on.
It is my favorite pronunciation of mustard, to be sure. So Alice has absolutely had it with Wonderland. Mm-hmm. She's decided that she is a no-nonsense girl after this. And she goes stomping through the Tulgey Wood looking for the way out.
I would be too.
See, this is like, I would have stayed at the Mad Tea Party forever, and
No, you wouldn't. You've gotten so angry that no one was actually letting you drink tea.
Oh, but see, I'd figure out how to drink the tea.
They would stop you.
They would not stop me.
That's the thing. Eventually, you'd like tie them up and just drink all the tea yourself.
And I would win.
You would win the Mad Tea Party.
I would win the Mad Tea Party. Mm-hmm. You just have to understand how to work with Wonderland. So we follow Alice into the Tulgey Wood, which is a wonderful delight, though a bit dark. But it's just full of the weirdest creatures.
You got your spectacle birds.
Spectacle birds and shovel birds and birdcage birds with little birds inside of them who get out, and then the big birdcage bird has to swallow them. And there's accordion owls and honky platypus horns. It's great. It's fantastic. There's like drum and cymbal frogs. Really, they just have an entire orchestra of animals in there. And if they really put their minds to it, they could probably do some really interesting takes on classical music.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now present the Tulgey Wood Orchestra.
Also, this Tulgey Wood has great signage.
Yes.
It's very up to date because Alice comes upon the pencil birds and the hammer birds. I don't know if they're actually pencil birds, but like the pencil creatures and the hammer creatures creating signs so that she does not step on the mome raths.
One wouldn't want to step on the mome raths.
Who look like they're made out of Play-Doh logs with googly eyes. I don't know how better to describe them.
They're a bit tribbly.
Tribbly? No, tribbles are really furry. These look like Gumby smashed together with another Gumby with hair. Tell me I'm wrong.
If you smash two Gumbies together, do Gumbies, are they amoeba-like? Can they just join and become a single unit?
Ooh, that's a little creepy. Or do they become like Gemini Gumby? Gemma Gumby?
Gumbii? Gumbini?
I like Gumbini. Okay, great. Yes. Also known as mome raths. Oh, but you know what's so great about this sequence? I love, like, the mome raths lead her to the red path, right? And she's like so excited because she's finally going to get home. And then all of a sudden, this broom dog shows up and erases the entire path and goes around her to the other side and then uses his little, like, dustpan tail. And there's just something about this that my brain loves. There's just something really metaphorically nice about that little square that looks like it belongs on a chess set, but it's so misplaced now and there is no chess set around it that it just, like, it works really, really well to establish how lonely and lost she is. That is the beginning and end of her path now. It's all of 6 inches. It feels very much like that fourth wall with animation where you just get the pencil out into frame and like start erasing characters. And then Alice is just stuck there on this little red square in this like continually growing darker place. And then all of a sudden there's this little rock for her to sit on and sing her song about how she gives herself very good advice, but she very seldom follows it.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. But it's okay. She sings a song and forest animals cry and slowly disappear from their sadness around her. Bringing in the Cheshire Cat, who always has great advice. Especially that all ways are the Queen's ways, and do remember that.
And then Alice stages a revolution.
Almost, sort of, kind of, not really.
I will say, one of my favorite parts of this film is...
You have a favorite part?
I do have a favorite part. The cards are among my favorite parts. When she winds up in the Queen's court and, like, the painting the roses red sequence, it's fine. But then when all of the cards appear on screen and start marching around and folding into one another and shuffling and unshuffling, creating these geometric patterns and sweeping across the screen, it's a real visual marvel. It feels very much like it's got that experimental designed quality of a Fantasia piece or something.
To me, that seems like the hardest part to animate, I think, in this whole film.
Yeah, for sure.
My brain understands sort of how you get around animating the more organic characters, but when you get to this and it has to be so precise and geometric, that's where my brain breaks.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing you do these days with computer. Even if you were doing a traditional film, you do that part, at least in the computer, and maybe trace it afterwards.
And we meet the Queen of Hearts, who is the most important character in this film, so she thinks.
Yep. Real stressful cap to a stressful film.
Ah, yes.
Great design, though.
Fantastic design.
Real imperious.
And it's not just, the cool way in which her dress is very inverted. It's also her face and her body shape, and the fact that we get to see her underwear. Her funny buns on her head that are kind of like all stacked on top of each other.
There's something actually kind of childish about the evil in her face.
Oh, yeah.
Something both soft and sharp at the same time.
She has very big emotions like a child, I think. I think actually for me the most frustrating part of this movie is the croquet match that they play. Obviously it's frustrating that the queen gets to cheat, but just Alice struggling with the flamingo to try and knock her hedgehog anywhere. Oh, I'm not entirely sure croquet is fun.
I've never been convinced that it is.
I have never been convinced there are rules.
You hit the ball and it's supposed to go through some hoops and hit a stick. I listened to a sleep story the other day trying to explain the rules of cricket. I think you could do a follow-up sleep story on the rules of croquet.
I'm just glad I don't have to play croquet.
You don't.
So it's the Cheshire Cat who gets her in trouble, being as delightful and frustrating as he is. He is that seed of chaos that just likes to flip the switch and make everything go boom.
You just know that the Cheshire Cat would be on 4chan.
Oh, yes. He is what you call chaotic evil?
I think he's chaotic neutral. I wouldn't say he's chaotic evil.
Okay.
I mean, it's not evil to mess with the queen.
Well, he wants to make her really angry. So the Cheshire Cat turns the queen upside down, and she is very on brand with her underpants, by the way, or her bloomers.
I mean, if your name is of hearts, you kind of have to have hearts all over. It's got to be your theme. Got to be your brand image.
Thankfully, the king is on her side, and Alice gets a trial, which is still a little backwards.
Like everything else, a bit topsy-turvy, yeah.
But we get some fun witnesses. Really just a moment to call back all of the fun characters that we have met along the way. I particularly appreciate how they have seeded throughout this movie the pieces that they need in this scene. We have to establish what an unbirthday is, that most people have them, that the dormouse freaks out when you say the word cat, and once you have all of these things in play, they're able to kind of fire them off one by one.
Everything you need to solve this movie is presented 2 scenes before the end.
You say this like it's a bad thing. They seeded it. They gave her a cat Dinah in the beginning. That then came up again in that prior scene to remind you she has a cat named Dinah, which is very important. Write that down. And Alice, of course, has the 2 pieces of the mushroom.
Oh, yeah.
Probably shouldn't eat them both at once. Don't mix meds.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't just sort of implode.
Shrink and grow and shrink and grow and...
Sort of pop out of existence.
Oh, like Donald Duck in, I don't remember if it was Saludos Amigos or no, I think it was the Three Caballeros because it was his birthday and he tries to grow back to his normal size, and Joe Carioca does that thing where he blows into his thumb and can change sizes, and Donald tries to do it and becomes a weird balloon animal. That should have happened to Alice when she ate both sides of the...
It should have. Should have been quite
mushroom.
Lumpy.
Unfortunately, with pretty female characters in animation, you cannot ever have them look less than extremely appealing. So, not a thing we can have fun with Alice. But she gets to tell the queen off, which is very satisfying until, oh no, she is back to her regular size, and we begin the final race. Really feeling like we're going right back through Wonderland in a reverse rewind, visiting all the other characters, edging our way back towards the beginning of the film. I am really jealous, though, of that hedge maze. It looks like so much fun, and I'm really sad that doesn't exist in real life.
Again, another great Disneyland opportunity.
Why don't they have this? Probably because it's not good for foot traffic. Like, people wouldn't find their way out again.
Yes.
Whereas, like, with the Haunted Mansion, you keep running people through it and they get on a doom buggy and pop out the other side. Hedge mazes are not like that at all. You can wander for days.
And you get charged an extra ticket day every day you're stuck inside.
Yes, but at least they would have Dole Whip stops. That's all I ask. But yes, so she runs backward through Wonderland towards the end, finds the doorknob, who knows that she is already outside where she wants to be because it was all a dream.
Aww. What a letdown.
I mean, shocking everyone, by which I mean no one.
I expected it to have consequences.
And you were there, and you were there, and if I ever go looking for adventure, I'll never go looking farther than my own backyard, sort of a thing. Thank you, Wizard of Oz.
Almost precisely.
Which is a terrible moral. Don't let that be your takeaway.
Well, you know, for the remainder of COVID-19 season, that can be your moral.
Yes, yes.
The structure of this movie is just so hard for me to get invested in because there's literally no reason why the end couldn't come after every single scene in the movie. There's no sense of, like, build or development. Then how do we get out? Well, we wake up. You could have woken up at any time. Anytime.
It's a delightful romp where we get to crack open teapots like coconuts and stand on our heads.
Just saying, the resolution of a film doesn't come from anything that's happened in the film. It's just a little hard to get invested in.
I like to think of it as a day at the zoo. You're not looking for a narrative from your day at the zoo. You are looking to go see a bunch of really cool and amazing different creatures in their natural habitats.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're gonna pitch Disney on a new, entirely separate theme park. They can build it at one of their larger parks that is just Wonderland. It's just Wonderland. That's all it is.
That's all I want in life. It'll have a giant hedge maze and a big tea room.
Mm-hmm. And a cat that frequently disappears.
Oh, but it would have the best cat cafe. Yay! Yeah. I continue to adore this movie. And might I say that watching this on Disney Plus with our, newfangled televisions of this particular century, wow, the quality is amazing.
Disney does not kid around on their restorations for their classics.
Like, you can practically see the character painting on the, celluloid on the background. It's, the line work is gorgeous.
It really is.
Holy cow. And, the colors are so vibrant. So if you have a chance, watch it on Disney Plus as opposed to DVD. I think I'm finally sold on this. Because I've had it on DVD for many, many years, and I have never seen this amount of detail.
I assume the Blu-ray is also pretty good.
I don't know if I have the Blu-ray. I forget. I truly have never seen this amount of detail, and that triggers in my brain well, you've seen this movie approximately 300 times, so I don't think it's just that you didn't notice. I think that it is just a much higher restoration quality because we are just at a higher resolution needed for our home viewing televisions.
And that is actually one of the nice things about Disney's vault practice over the years is, because they want to be able to release these multiple different editions, they will frequently go back and do really nice ground-up reconstruction restorations for whatever the latest and greatest technology is. It's more than a lot of old films get.
For sure. As we keep going on into the future, I'm hoping we can keep taking these old movies with us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Disney will make sure we can. I'm sure Disney will find a way to turn their classics into brain implant holograms.
That sounds good. I mean, hey, if someone wants to give me virtual reality Wonderland, I'm so there in a heartbeat. That is the only reason I can understand virtual reality. So it's time for us to stop quickly for a Guess Who. I know we've talked a lot, so it's going to be very quick. Hopefully very easy.
Okay.
I'm debating how much I really think you know Disney trivia, actually. Everyone listening knows this except you.
Well, that's disappointing. How am I going to fail you now?
We're just going to remind people that, like, maybe not everyone knows this, and you can still delight others with this fun fact. Observe. We talked earlier about Kathryn Beaumont, who plays Alice.
Mm-hmm.
She was very much a little girl herself while playing Alice.
Oh, she has remarkably good diction.
Right? She's born in England, and I wish my kids could sound like that instead of like me.
It's a very soothing voice.
Oh my goodness, yes. Fantastic. I mean, her performance, I am surprised, can come out of a child. Anyway, she plays another Disney character. Very similar. Who does she play?
In another animated film?
Yes.
Wendy Darling.
You did it! So we will see her in the next film, because Peter Pan is right after this. One thing you may not know is that after Peter Pan, Kathryn Beaumont did grow up. She attended USC, our mutual university, and she graduated with a degree in education and became an elementary school teacher for over 35 years.
Aww.
How sweet is that?
How cool would it be to be an elementary school kid in Alice's class?
I'm so upset that I was not. I need to redo my childhood over so that I can be taught by Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, you're going to have to move it back in time a little bit.
Move what back in time?
Your childhood?
I mean, she taught for 35 years.
I assume starting in like 1955? So she probably retired around the time you were born?
Darn it. People should stop doing that. Retiring when I'm born.
When you were born, a whole class of executives were just like, the world doesn't need me anymore. It's got Alexa.
I mean, basically the world was like, Alexa's here. We can stop doing everything, including turning on our own music and our lights. Do I get that joke a lot? I get that joke a lot. Do it yourself. Well, as we all know, because we were probably all there, Tim Burton did his versions of Alice in Wonderland in 2010, and the sequel, Through the Looking Glass, in 2016. Feel free to let me know how you feel about these, listeners, because Rotten Tomatoes gives the first one a 51%, which isn't half bad.
I think it is almost literally half bad, but yes.
But it isn't half bad. It is still an unbirthday by this calculation. And the second one got a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is quite dismal. Might I say that the original 1951 Alice in Wonderland has an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Although their ratings on older films are a bit spotty because they don't aggregate as many reviews as many of the others.
I'm just saying.
But you never watched those films.
No, I watched the first one, and there was a strange amount of, like, romantic tinge between the Mad Hatter and Alice, and it was creepy because I just felt their age difference in a way that did not work.
Hollywood, da-da-da-da-da-da, Hollywood.
I don't think we're going to see another Alice in Wonderland remake for quite some time. They are visual marvels. I very much enjoyed all of the character designs that went into at least the original film. But yeah, again, I know this version also lacked in the story department, but at least it was really charming.
Mm-hmm.
The Tim Burton version, I don't think met either the charming or the story department's expectations.
Yeah, I've never watched either of them. It has sort of passed the point where I lost patience with Tim Burton and his Tim Burtoniness. They
are visually very interesting, but I mean that in, like, the highest compliment of a way. Because, like, you don't want to call them beautiful, but they are intriguing where you just can't stop looking at them and, like, wanting to turn them over and, like, I don't know. It's like that painting you want to sit in front of for hours at a museum is what I feel like this remake of a movie is.
Yes, I generally feel like as a director, Tim Burton is a great production designer. I mean, obviously, he's made some incredible films and has some real genre-defining pieces under his belt. But personally, it's been a long time since I've enjoyed one of his newer films. You should probably cut that out because someday you may encounter Tim Burton.
And he will have listened to our podcast.
Obviously.
Hi, Tim. All right. Well, I mean, I think that's everything. We have talked of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings.
Of why the sea is boiling hot and whether pigs have wings.
Kaloo Kalay.
Well, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast player. You can write us at retroscoping@gmail.com or find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Retroscoping. Join us next time for Peter Pan, a movie which I have nearly as much passion for the original source material as Alexa has for Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland.
Hooray!
Hooray!
Hooray! Happy unbirthday to all of our listeners, unless it is your birthday.
In which case, happy birthday. There we go. We've got all the bases covered.
All of the holidays are acknowledged.
And for now, go live happily ever after.
Who asks birds for directions?
It's Wonderland. You ask literally everything for directions.